What is up, guys? It is Marcus from Perspective Sports, and today we'll be talking about the NFC North. And this division has been historically dominated by the Green Bay Packers since its inception, with a hint of the Minnesota Vikings and Chicago Bears winning it here and there. And this division has been able to field some of the best defenses in the NFL over the past couple of years, especially when you look at the Minnesota Vikings and the Chicago Bears, who both last year ranked top 6 in points per game allowed. But unlike the Chicago Bears, the Minnesota Vikings were able to field an offense that was able to complete the team and take them to the playoffs. But when you look at the Green Bay Packers, they have also stepped up their defense, and the Detroit Lions still have Matt Patricia, who's trying to build a very good defense in Detroit as well. And so, with all that being said, this division should be relatively fun and competitive to watch. And let's go ahead and start with the Minnesota Vikings, who had to make some tough decisions this offseason. The Minnesota Vikings were 10-6 last season and made it as far as the divisional round after defeating the New Orleans Saints on the road in Wild Card Weekend. And the Vikings had an interesting offseason that kind of flew under the radar because they didn't really have any cap space heading in, which led to them getting creative and making some very tough decisions. Some of those decisions include not re-signing defensive end Everson Griffin, who was coming off a good season that saw him have 8 sacks, 24 QB hits, 41 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, and an interception. They also traded Pro Bowl wide receiver Stephon Diggs. The Vikings probably had one of, and you could really consider, that's tough when you look at Tampa Bay, but one of, if not the best wide receiver duo in the league with Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen, but Diggs did seem unhappy. He had a decent sized cap hit, and so by trading him, they saved themselves some drama and a little bit of cap space in the process. They released cornerback Xavier Rhodes, and this was a tough one. I mean, even as a Packers fan, this was tough to see because Xavier Rhodes was a staple in this Vikings defense. He was a true lockdown number one corner, but his play has declined over the years, and by releasing him, they saved about $8.1 million in cap space. And then they released nose tackle Linval Joseph, and releasing Joseph was a huge cap savings for the Minnesota Vikings. Saved them about $10.5 million for a guy who only played about 50% of the snaps. And so, as you can see, the Vikings really had to make some tough decisions. They had to make a lot of decisions that, they probably didn't want to have to make, but they had to, being in the cap position that they were in. But despite the big changes and decisions they had to make, they still have a good core of players. They still have a solid roster in Minnesota. And in the draft, they did very good, in my opinion. In the first round, they got wide receiver Justin Jefferson with the 22nd overall pick. And I loved Justin Jefferson going into the draft. He's 6'1", 202, 9-inch hands, 4.43 speed. He was one of Joe Burrow's go-to guys. I think Justin Jefferson has the chance to make an impact from day one in the NFL, and I think the Minnesota Vikings got themselves a very good player. 31st overall pick in the first round, they got cornerback Jeff Gladney out of TCU, and he'll fit right into this Vikings defense. He's fast, he's aggressive, and he's exactly what the Vikings need in an attempt to replace Xavier Rhodes and some of the other players in the secondary that they lost. In the second round, they got tackle Urza Cleveland out of Boise State, and Cleveland was very good at Boise State. He left Boise State a year early to enter the draft. He's a big, quick guy. He's 6'6", 302, runs a 4.9 340, so he's very fast and quick for his size. In the third round, they got cornerback Cameron Dantzler out of Mississippi State, and Dantzler allowed 39 catches on 568 pass coverage snaps during his time at Mississippi State, and I don't know about you, but I would consider that locked down. And so the Vikings not only did a good job of filling needs, but filling needs with quality players in the draft. And so when you look at the Vikings core, they still have Kirk Cousins, quarterback Kirk Cousins, who they just gave an extension to, wide receiver Adam Thielen, running back Dalvin Cook, tight ends Kyle Rudolph and Irv Smith Jr. Defensively, they still have re-signed Anthony Harris, the safety Harrison Smith, linebackers Eric Kendricks, Anthony Barr, edge Danielle Hunter. And so the Vikings core is still there. But when you look at their schedule, it's rough, especially out the gate. They'll see versus Green Bay, at Indy, versus Tennessee, at Houston, and at Seattle. And that's just out the gate. And then from weeks 14 to 16, they're at Tampa Bay versus Chicago and at New Orleans. And so the Vikings are going to have a very tough schedule this year. And it's going to be interesting to see how fast those players can gel together, especially with a gauntlet like it is coming out the gate in the first couple weeks of the season. Then we have the Green Bay Packers, who had an offseason. They did have one. It didn't go anything like we expected, but they indeed had an offseason. And we'll get to that in just a second. And let's take a look at what the Packers were able to accomplish last year with first-year head coach Matt LaFleur. They went 13-3. They got a bye week, and they got to the NFC Championship before getting dismantled by the 49ers. And you can say that's an accomplishment within itself, especially with the first-year head coach being able to secure that bye week, beating the Seattle Seahawks, and making it to the NFC Championship. And so I would consider that an impressive start to Matt LaFleur's coaching career. But back to the offseason. In free agency, they lost Brian Bulaga to the LA Chargers, linebackers Blake Martinez and Kyler Fackrell to the New York Giants, and released tight end Jimmy Graham. And so they replaced Bulaga with right tackle Rick Wagner out of Detroit from the Detroit Lions, and that's a signing that I like. And they also brought in linebacker Christian Kirksey from the Cleveland Browns to fill the void left by Blake Martinez and Kyler Fackrell. And again, I like that signing too. But that's where the normalcy really ended for the Packers all season. They signed wide receiver Devin Funchess, who I believe will fit right into the Packers wide receiving core and what they want. And I like Devin Funchess. I like the signing. But it appears that the Packers thought that Devin Funchess was the solution to all their wide receiver problems. And so that's why I think they felt comfortable drafting replacements in the first couple rounds of this draft. They traded up in the first round to select quarterback Jordan Love, who will be Aaron Rodgers' replacement out of Utah State. And then they drafted running back A.J. Dillon in the second round, who I hope they are not planning on letting Aaron Jones go for. I hope that is not the conversation being had in Green Bay right now. I will lose it. But anyway, the Packers roster year over year is pretty much the same. They still have Aaron Rodgers, running back Aaron Jones, wide receiver Devontae Adams, with Allen Lazard looking like the number 2 receiver. I think he'll be that number 2 receiver by the end of the year. The offensive line is exactly the same with the exception of Ricky Wagner. The defense, of course, pretty much the same with the exception of Blake Martinez and Tramon Williams. And so that's why we need to take a look at the Packers schedule. And when you look at the schedule, roughly from top to bottom, it's tough. And so I can't see a world where the Packers go 13-3 again. And when you look at their schedule, first 4 weeks, you'll see them play at Minnesota week 1 and at New Orleans in week 3 and versus the Atlanta Falcons on Monday night in week 4. And then they'll get a bye week. And for some reason, the NFL continues to give early bye weeks. I don't get it. Please get rid of early bye weeks. I don't see the point. But anyway, right after that week 5 bye week 6 to 9, you'll see them play at Tampa Bay, at Houston versus Minnesota, and at San Francisco on a short week. So good luck that week. So when you look at the Packers schedule, it is going to be a tough one, but with the core pretty much intact, they're not going to have to make a whole lot of adjustments in terms of play style and getting used to one another. Then we have the Detroit Lions, who spent a lot of time and resources on their defense this offseason. They traded away cornerback Darius Slay to the Philadelphia Eagles, then replaced them by signing Atlanta Falcons cornerback Desmond Trufant. They traded with the New England Patriots for safety Deron Harmon. They signed former Patriot linebacker Jamie Collins. They signed former Chiefs linebacker Reggie Ragland and signed cornerback Dale Roberts from the New York Jets. And as far as the draft is concerned, they used their 3rd overall pick on cornerback Jeff Okudah out of Ohio State, the best corner in the draft and the guy who I think can make an impact from day one. And in the second round, they decided let's go some offense. They drafted running back DeAndre Swift out of Georgia. In the 3rd round, they went back to defense, drafting linebacker Julia Aqua out of Notre Dame. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that name. Aquara, I think it's how you're supposed to say it. And then with their next 3 picks, they focused more on their offensive line. In the 3rd round, selecting guard Jonah Jackson out of Ohio State. And in the 4th round, selecting offensive lineman John Simpson out of Clemson and guard Logan Stenberg out of Kentucky. And again, they still have quarterback Matthew Stafford, who I love, and I really like to see is finally being appreciated. They have wide receiver Kenny Galladay, center Frank Ragnow, and defensively, they still have a lot of talent. And so this team is going to be competitive, but I don't see them being able to make it out of this division. When you look at their schedule, especially the second half, weeks 8 through 17, they'll be versus Indy, at Minnesota, versus Washington, at Carolina, versus Houston, at Chicago, versus Green Bay, at Tennessee, versus Tampa Bay, and versus Minnesota. That's a really tough second half of the year, and I don't think Detroit has the roster to be able to sustain that kind of schedule and still be able to win a division with Green Bay and Minnesota in it. And then we have the Chicago Bears, who developed a really weird obsession with tight ends this offseason. And when you look at it, they signed former Packers tight end Jimmy Graham, former Browns tight end Demetrius Harris. They brought back J.P. Holt. They drafted Cole Kmet in the 1st round out of Notre Dame. He's a good player. I think he's a good pick, tight end out of Notre Dame. And then they traded for Dolphins tight end Adam Sheehan. And so I don't know what Chicago's plan is right now. Maybe they're planning on running the ball 100% of the time. But still, having 8 tight ends on the roster is a bit abnormal, especially when you look at the amount of resources and time that it took to bring these tight ends in. And outside of that, it looks like they gave up on quarterback Mitch Trubisky by trading for Nick Foles. And when you look at the Bears offensively, they don't have much outside of wide receiver Allen Robinson and Anthony Miller, who I think is going to see a nice boost in production this year, and running backs Tariq Cohen and David Montgomery. Defensively, they're still solid, but they're nothing special as a team, and it looks like they're going to go run heavy this year, and I don't really know what the Bears are doing. The defense is still good. The defense is going to be tough to score on, tough to move the ball on. But offensively, I don't think they'll be much better than they were last year. I think they're still trying to find an identity. And so I don't have much expectations for the Bears this season. They'll still be a tough team to go beat, especially on the road. But it'll be much like last year. And with that being said, it is time to reveal the NFC North predictions. And number 1 in the division is the Green Bay Packers at 10-6. 5-1 in the division. Then we have the Minnesota Vikings at number 2 at 10-6, 3-3 in the division. The Detroit Lions at 6-10, 3-3 in the division, and the Chicago Bears at 6-10, 1-5 in the division. So let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Minnesota and Green Bay. I was surprised to see that they both were 10-6. I had Green Bay 5-1 in the division, and I guess that was the tiebreaker because I do have them splitting their games this year. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. See you there.